Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be looking into episode 1 of real life floor plan builds in The Sims 4. So on screen we're going to be looking at a designer called Donald A. Gadner. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I was quite interested in the way this floor plan looks because there aren't a lot of flat surfaces on the sides, or flat facades I should say. For this one, it is a 2,898 total square foot house, but that is above grade, which means not including basement. It does include a bonus room on the second floor, which is included in the Sims 4 build that I'm going to be creating. So for this floor plan, we have 2 bedrooms on the first floor, 3 on the second floor, and this one does not have the basement planned out. However, I will be kind of making my own take on how that would go. And for an exterior theme, I saw this while browsing through Pinterest. I really like the warm exteriors. Although this doesn't have shake shingles, I'm going to be including those because I rather like that kind of siding, and it does also have natural stone or stone veneer. I can't really tell just based on it because they both generally look the same, whether it's real or fake. All links are going to be in the description. Of course, they are not sponsored, although I wish they were. In the description, you'll also see all the cheat codes that I use in order to complete this build. And now we're going to be jumping into the speed build. So starting off, we do punch in our cheat codes, and we're gonna be starting off with the exterior. Now this is my second run through of trying out this build, and I started off with kind of building the staircase. So the first time around it didn't go so hot because when you're kind of angling the stairs, it doesn't really like it in The Sims. But if you kind of start off with it and kind of play around with it, it'll kind of work out eventually. So right now I'm kind of shaping out the exterior floor plan. And I kind of have a different building style, I would say, where I would build a part of the house and then I would furnish the inside, because it kind of gives you perspective on how the space is used, and then you can kind of judge the remaining part of the house. Although this kind of style more pertains to when you're trying to replicate a floor plan where the measurements does not exactly match up with how The Sims 4 does it. So here I'm just creating the bathroom. This is the first one where I'm kind of testing out the space because I really wanted to have a shower bath room. So in a sense, the whole room is a shower and you can enter the bathtub from there. This is only for the master bathroom, and then every other bathroom is gonna have just a shower bath combo. And this is my first video, and I tried looking into a 10x speed, but I felt like it was going so fast that you basically could not really follow up, and I feel like it would just destroy those who have motion sickness with all the way I am twirling around with the camera. And generally I kind of like building from top down, where you can kind of see how everything is kind of being used. Right here I'm kind of struggling because in the floor plan you don't really have an empty space between the bathroom and the powder room, but with how the floor plan is kind of done to transfer to Sims 4 measurements, I kind of had to add that empty room, in addition to also being able to enter the basement from that little corner. And I thought it was really cool how in the floor plan they did have pillars, although I wonder if it's kind of odd because you kind of have to transverse through that, so it could be kind of obstructing views or kind of blocking your way. But from client photos, it does seem to kind of work out. So looking at the floor plan when trying to build this, I kind of measure based on kind of like spaces in between like counters. So when you're looking at the kitchen, right here it's kind of like a 4 block length, where you have a counter on one block and then a walkthrough on another, and then you have your island, and you need figured chairs, and then you need a walkway to walk from behind those chairs. If I'm not mistaken, I think it is actually 5 blocks long. For this kitchen, I really like, I forgot what Sims pack this is, but I ended up buying it because I really love the green look in like the cabinets. And it's kind of interesting when you use like cheat codes as well, because I just put a trash can there, and I noticed like a lot of times you would have trash cans in your bathroom, but if you, in The Sims 4, you generally have like a really small bathroom where it's like 3 by 2 in measurement, and you can't really fit much in it. But if you size down the trash can, it's kind of cute when you kind of just put it in between the wall or like the cabinets and the toilet. Here I kind of deviate a little bit from the floor plan. So there's supposed to be a closet by that pantry behind the kitchen, but instead I did extend the pantry, and I did end up, which you'll see later, is I ended up creating a kind of like a closet and a drop zone in the garage. So generally, I believe there should be enough space where you can fit 2 cars. One of them can definitely be larger than the other, since a small portion of it is taken up by the drop zone and the cabinet that I mentioned. Now here I started looking into bedding. Now I wanted each room to kind of be rather unique, although it kind of gets rather difficult when you have so many rooms, because in a sense you're going to have 2 on the first floor, 3 on the second, and then you're going to have an additional 2 in the basement. So that's about 7 rooms, which is kind of like crazy. And in the future, for future builds, I really want to build houses that are kind of under 3,000 square foot above grade. So I really like minimalistic houses that are kind of like small and make effective use of every single room. So I prefer like function over form, although it does quite look nice when you kind of try modern builds. And if you guys look into my gallery, I have tried many different styles. Well, actually, I think I've only tried like 2, where it's like Tudor houses and modern houses. So I tried to kind of like see explore my taste in what kind of houses I want. So for this one, I would say it's kind of a more traditional house. And for episode 2, I'm gonna be looking into a craftsman house that is gonna be like a 2,000 square foot above grade floor plan. So now we're gonna be looking into the second floor. So I have finished the first floor of the walls and furnished enough so that I can get a sense of how the space would be used, and then I can kind of estimate how the second floor would look. Generally, most bathrooms would be like 3 by 2, but from how the measurements were kind of adding up, I ended up having to make one of the bathrooms in the second floor like 4 by 2 rather than a 3 by 2, which how the floor plan kind of indicates that they should each be. And generally it's kind of easy kind of measuring out each room, kind of based on looking at the floor plan and how the beds are kind of like should be done. And you can easily create closets that are like 2 by 2 for most walk-in closets. And it kind of gets a little bit odd trying to delete the floor so that you have a 2-story ceiling. I ended up having to close off the room and adding a door but it's kind of like worth it just so that you can make it work. Although I could probably fiddle around to make it work without having to close it off, although it doesn't really make too much of a difference. And sometimes in these builds you ended up having to create some dead space just because it just doesn't work out. Like to the left of the staircase there's like one space that's like a void, and then there's a part of the walk-in closet that's a void, since there isn't really like a 3x2 walk-in closet. So here I'm kind of like looking into adding details and starting into the laundry room where I'm adding like toilet paper to everything, and I also later on like add a bunch of tissues because like honestly like I just need so much, just needs a tissue box in every single room. And what's really cool, this is not really part of the floor plan. Generally I saw that this was supposed to be like a media room, and I kind of saw that there was like a space between the wall and the door where you can kind of create like a morning kitchen, or it's kind of like a space where the kids can be and they like have soda or popcorn. So it's kind of like important to just have like a mini fridge and a microwave. Although I ended up changing it later. Well, we don't really have mini fridges in The Sims 4, so I ended up changing to like a full-size fridge because I thought it's kind of nice. And I wanted, the space is rather huge, so I wanted to create like a half wall where it's kind of like a computer room in addition to being like a media room. And this is kind of like an initial plan that I made for the media room. However, there does end up being like a window that does kind of like get in the way. So I end up moving the TV to the side so that it kind of doesn't block that sunlight coming in. And now, oh, my mistake. That it just goes so fast that sometimes I don't even notice. And the part by the walk-in closet on the top right side of that room is actually a closet, so luckily I do not have to create a lot of dead space. It's basically just that 1x1 that's downstairs between the bathroom and the powder room, and then one to the left of the stairs. But yeah. And now we're gonna be looking into the kids' room. A lot of these rooms are at minimum 4x4, so a lot of these rooms can be converted into a full-size room, but I thought since it's kind of like a family house or a multi-generational house, however you want to describe it, it's kind of nice having like probably the two like the main couple in the master bedroom, and then your in-law suite on the right hand side, and then upstairs could be like your two older kids, and then you have like one room for one of your kids. So it's kind of nice that there's just so many rooms in this floor plan. Essentially it's kind of like no compromise because there's just so much space where everyone can hang out. There's like essentially 3 living rooms, with the media room on the second floor, the main living room with the fireplace on the first floor, although I do believe I omitted the fireplace because I don't really like fireplaces, which is because I feel like they just get outdated so fast. And a lot of times in this build I do change my mind about a lot of the way that I want the layout to be in terms of furnishing, because I feel like I just get so picky, I don't know. So looking here, I do start adding light switches to every single room. I really love the fine details in every single home. So I do add like a fire alarm, I do like to add toilet paper everywhere, and tissues everywhere, and carpets. it's quite nice just seeing all of the fine detail that goes into builds. And I do have kind of go through the entire list of debug items when you see later, and I just add every single thing that I just find interesting. And it's always so interesting seeing what debug and test items that The Sims 4 has, and there's always like so interesting seeing people build with like those void houses where it's basically completely empty and it's just like a fully built exterior building, and I just think that just looks so cool. And you'll see that I added this glass, I forgot what you'll call it, but I'm just gonna call it a glass table where I'm gonna create a terrarium. I did start implementing this in some of my other builds, and it's always quite fun because when you add some of the bug critters and you downsize the cage, you're able to essentially put bugs into like a glass terrarium, and you won't see that huge terrarium cage in it, and it just looks so amazing. I will have screenshots later where you'll see all of that, and it just looks so pretty. So here I do start building the master bedroom's walk-in closet, and I think it's quite cute having like a full-size mirror in there and then like a little vanity spot. And it's really nice because there's also like a lot of sunlight, although I don't really have that kind of space in real life, so I'm not really sure what the best like lighting would be when you're kind of like doing makeup, because in a sense I kind of just do it in the bathroom with just the lighting, but probably natural light could be nice as well. And there could also be curtains where you just close it off, so then you don't have to deal with that. You'll see that I basically utilize like every single furniture from this pack. Man, I should really look that up. I'll link in the description for each pack that I am using, although when you do look it up in the gallery, you do see a list of all the packs that is being utilized for this build. And adding more fine detail with adding soap into each bathroom. Looking here into the laundry room, I do get stuck a little bit because a lot of the laundry wall shelvings are a rather odd shape, so I kind of like play around, and I kind of didn't mind it clipping because it kind of like looks nice when it's kind of like underneath some of the cabinetry there, as you see. Kind of like play around. For the garage, I did see in the debug that there is kind of like this like garage door, but you would use it for like painting, although I think that might also be like a normal item that you can have like add as well. But I kind of make like a makeshift garage door where you kind of create like a basement, and you would have a door frame that's sized up. And then you add like these, I forgot what you call it, like dividers, and it kind of like overlaps each other, so then it kind of creates like a wall. In a sense, you don't really want to create like a whole wall that's like a wood, so it's kind of nice having like a door frame that kind of plays as a garage door in a sense. This floor plan is quite neat because there's a lot of storage in the garage, and it kind of adds to that odd shape for the exterior where it doesn't have like a flat facade in any kind of space. Here I'm kind of just like adding random things to the garage to make it look more lived in. And as with most households, or I should say Asian households, it's always like a no-no to wear shoes in the house. Although I always find it odd whenever I see on like TV, seeing people wear their shoes into the house. So I feel like that just gets so messy. Because when you have like slippers, you never have to worry about getting mud tracked into the house. So I was like adding that to every single build, regardless of what kind of style build it is. For the kitchen style that I decided, for the entire theme of the house, I really like having like a darker toned wood with green accents, which basically is like a forest theme, I would say. And it's kind of nice having like the copper sinks and the copper like metal framing on everything. Although I kind of wish that you could have a cabinet color and then a different type of countertop, whether it be wood, granite, or such. That would be really neat. And I wanted the fridge and the microwave and such to kind of be replicating the Samsung, I forgot what you would call it. It's like a Tuscan stainless steel, and it's kind of like a brown color. And I thought it would look really neat into the forest theme, where it's like browns and greens. And here I'm kind of generally when you build real life floor plans, I kind of like just building on the center of the lot, and then once I kind of get the framing for it, I would kind of like center it or move the whole entire house to where it kind of needs to be, so then I can add fencing and all the outdoor features that I kind of want to add. And it's kind of fun. It also gets very tedious when you do outside furnishing and decorating, but I think it's kind of cool how different people, what do you call it, like landscape. In a sense, for this build in particular, I decided not to terraform, and I think like when you terraform, it kind of has to be done for like a niche kind of house. So a lot of these floor plans, generally they're on flat land, or they're kind of like for a hillside house. So for the sake of this real life floor plan, or for future ones, you'll probably see all of them being like flat landscaping. Although in the future, you'll probably see a more unique custom build that I would do, where it would have a lot more terraforming. If you look into the gallery, there's kind of like one that I based off of Skyrim, and I think it just looks absolutely amazing, where there's just like 3-4 tiers of like terraforming, and it just like brings so much memory playing that game. So I thought I would try replicating it in The Sims. And as you can see, I did actually make a mistake where I was trying to add basements, but it ended up creating walls on the first floor, and I was like, oopsies. But here I'm trying to replicate the roofing now. It kind of gets difficult when you're trying to replicate roofing for things that don't really have a 360 point of view for the house. But luckily, this house does kind of make it easy, despite not having side views of the house. So just the front and back are kind of all you kind of need to see how it's done. In The Sims 4, it does kind of get odd building, or like roofing I should say, because if you're creating a roof on top of the first floor and it extends all the way past to the second floor, it ends up creating like if you're playing on live mode, you'll end up seeing the roof when you're on the second floor, and it just does not look nice. So the play around with that is that you would create one like single angle roof on the first floor, and then you can kind of create like an angled gable on the second floor, just so it lines up, so then it looks like the roofing is going from like on top of the second floor to on top of the second floor on like one little go. but performance is not really the sake of this video, so adding as many roof to just make it work is all I kind of end up caring about for this build. And I was quite impressed with how the roofing was able to work, because a lot of times when you're trying to translate the build from real life to The Sims 4, it doesn't always match up. So a lot of times I do end up making small adjustments here and there just to make it end up working. But yeah. I also really love the idea of sunrooms, and I felt like it was kind of a missed opportunity that I did not change part of the lanai into a sunroom, although that could always be changed by you guys. And here I kind of am now trying to replicate that exterior theme that I showed in the beginning of the video, where I'm not sure what you would call it, but it's kind of like metals roofings, and then you kind of have your traditional shingle roofings or such. But now I'm kind of like adding natural stone or stone veneer, and generally in real life I rather dislike it when you have a fake facade where the siding only applies to the front of the house. So I really made an effort when building this to kind of make sure that it kind of wraps around the house in a kind of like a natural way, just so it doesn't just abruptly stop like where the siding goes. And I wish you could add trusses onto the gables. I think they always look really nice, but I think that is one limitation that you have in The Sims. Of course, I do believe that you can always use, I forgot what you call it, it's kind of like a mod where you can kind of like rotate like items as you please. So you could probably add trusses, but I feel like that ends up taking like a lot more time, and it probably would be a performance hit for those on a more lower end PC or such. But I believe a lot of the floor plans that you'll see in the future are kind of gonna be how my personal taste changes as time goes on, although I will try my best to go like past my comfort zone and try different kind of styles for exteriors and interiors, but I always end up going back to this forest theme, as you will see in this build and also prior builds that you'll see in the gallery. And here generally a lot of times it kind of gets hard color coding with all the different packs in The Sims 4. So generally you would create kind of like your front door, you would create the perfect kind of color that you want, and then you would kind of create like the sequential windows and doors to kind of match with it, so you kind of just like see if it matches up to a good extent. But as long as it like gets there, I think that's all that really matters. And here I'm creating accent walls. So there's something that Animal Crossing, I believe it's like somewhat new in the new updates, where you're allowed to do accent walls, and I think it's such a fabulous idea where you add accents to where it kind of like makes sense. I generally do not add accent walls into like big spaces like the living room or in the bathroom where there's a shower. So in the powder room there is one, because there isn't gonna be much theme that would deteriorate the accent walls, although I believe if you kind of had like wood paneling accent walls, I think it would be fine. There's like one glitch, as you can kind of see, where the roofing or the exterior wall siding kind of like merges into the building, and I believe that is something that has to do with how the roofing is, kind of like how I was saying with if you extend it way too far than it needs to, you end up like being able to see the roof when you're like in game, and it's kind of like very unfortunate. So there's kind of like again my second run through of seeing like my past mistakes on how it was done. For the basement, there isn't really a floor plan like drawn out in the website, so I'm kind of just adding random things that I want to be in the basement. So there's gonna be like a gym, a storage room, and I really like the Get to Work pack where you kind of have these industrial, I believe it's from Get to Work, where you have these industrial pipes and they kind of like play as like, I don't know, like water heaters and heating systems and such. I think that's kind of a nice touch. And generally you could also always just create like crawl space or slabs, although that's not something that is done in The Sims, but I think it's always nice having like a basement. So generally in like all my builds, I like to have a basement in them. And then if you guys look at the, it's not really labeled as a Skyrim house, but it's like a 64 by 64 lot in the gallery where I have a basement, and it's kind of like a cool like vampire place, and it's like has like a lot of alien plants. And I think since it's not really meant to be a real life house, it's like fantasy like, I kind of just like did whatever. But I think it's always kind of cool because in the Animal Crossing back then there was like aquarium flooring and walls, and it's always kind of cool when you go downstairs and you're just like in the ocean, and I think that was kind of cute. But it was kind of like a play on how I used to build a lot of my basements in Animal Crossing. And now I'm starting to add curtains to the builds. Unfortunately, a lot of the times with the curtains, it kind of doesn't really fit the window well, especially if it's like 3 blocks wide, since the curtains kind of like account for 2 spaces. And a lot of times it will generally like clip through furniture, like the beds and cabinets and such. Although it's not really like the end of the world because it's kind of just used for aesthetics. And unfortunately I did not playtest this build, but I'm assuming that the trash cans being added are not usable since they're kind of like out of the way and The Sims probably cannot reach it. I really like how a lot of these rooms kind of have different shapes, because a lot of the rooms are kind of like 4x4, and on the first floor they're kind of like 5x5 or such. But this one has like a nice like L shape, but generally this small little protrusion is just like a seating area, which adds to the odd shape of the facade, just so it doesn't have flat features. For each room, I really want to make each one just slightly unique and different. Like we finished the kids' room and the master bedroom, and now this one's kind of like another of the kids' bedroom, and it's kind of more catered towards like a Japanese theme from the Snowy Escape DLC. And I would add a bunch of like terrarium and aquariums throughout the house, although it's kind of like crazy because like if it was in real life there'd just be so much like to take care of. Although this is just in The Sims, and they kind of add filler to the space and makes it more lively, I would say. I really love the variety of all the little critters. I remember like back then when I would be playing Sims, I would try to collect them all, but I think like there was like a glitch where it's probably like going into like a new save, and you end up losing the whole progress that you have of collecting like a lot of different artifacts. But I think it might have to do with something with like moving your Sims to different households, and like it's kind of like carried over, or like it isn't, and it's like rather odd glitch. And I kind of feel like when that happened, it kind of made me not really want to collect any of the things again, because like imagine getting like all the achievements for a game and then you just like start over because that was something that's kind of like unforeseeable. Although it's not really like the end of the world. Like I think I would love to try playing Sims again, because I feel like a lot of the time spent like a lot of the time that I spend on The Sims is mainly just building. Because a lot of times I would finish a build and then I would not really be like I feel like no one floor plan is something that I just really like, so then I just keep changing my like taste and I just want to have something new or different. So I have like so many different builds in the gallery. And I was trying to find like filler in these closets, and in the front, like when you walk into the foyer, you'll see kind of like a little place where you can like drop off your keys, drop off your mail and such. And this house in particular is more catered to cats, but I'm not sure if dogs are able to use the litter box. But I feel like cats are just like my favorite, but I do love dogs too. I think generally my most favorite part of building is the interior decoration, because I love just seeing what you're able to do with the space and just fill it up with just a bunch of stuff. And that's why I think I have the build style where I would build the like a little bit of the exterior and then just start furnishing, because I feel like that just makes it easier to like perceive how you want to utilize the space and all these different things. And also, if you're not satisfied with it, you can always like rebuild the whole entire house. And I feel like I kind of do that sometimes, but I think generally at max I just have like a second take and I'm like satisfied with that build. And I try to make sure that I had like make sure that each room kind of has like the bare essentials, like having a clock and tissues and light switch, as I mentioned. And just adding all these fun details, I feel like just like bring out a build, because otherwise you would just end up with a lot of dead space, and I feel like it just doesn't feel very lived in. But of course, I feel like a lot of people who are more into a live build, they prefer having a build that doesn't really have a lot of things already built in, like they want to add as you go. I feel like in that kind of case, you'll probably want to have I forgot what you would call it, like a budget house where you have like a 20k. And I feel like I might do that in a future episode, but I don't think it would really pertain to a real life floor plan, or it might for like a super tiny house kind of thing. So here I'm just adding, checking out which kind of foliage I want to use for the house. Generally, I kind of default to using a lot of the, I forgot what you call it, like the outdoor adventures pack, where you have a bunch of like pine trees, and I just think they just look really nice because I love a forest theme and outdoors, and I just think it looks absolutely amazing. And I kind of love the idea of a bamboo forest, but generally in real life you don't really want to have bamboo forests unless they're kind of like contained, because they would just like take over everything, like they just grow so fast. And here I wanted to make sure that there's kind of like enough room for like the cars in the garage, along with like outdoor parking, so then it's kind of easy to like go in and out. And for all the trees that I place, I believe before, when I used to do landscaping, I would kind of have like the coloring all on the whole lot and kind of like mix and match. But now I kind of just leave it at the default like green color and just add like detail where needed. So like underneath the trees there's just like a dirt like circle, and I feel like that kind of just makes it more like pop out. In here I really like the idea of adding like a lake into your houses, where you will have like a gazebo or things like that. And I believe that one is a swimming pool, so you could technically like swim in it. And if you have I forgot what you call it. It's like a vacation place in where you go like adventuring into dungeons and like temples. There's like this really cool artifact where you can summon a skeleton maid, and if you have like a very specific combination, they could basically be like your friend, and otherwise it will have like negative like what do you call it, like atmosphere to your Sims people. But I think that's like really cool. Like you have like a maid skeleton just like helping you around, and I feel like it's kind of cute. Like if you have like kids in the house, they're kind of like making friends with the skeleton. And now I'm looking at a lot of these debug items, and generally with how rocks are, you generally get like a single cluster of rocks in like vanilla or packs that you get, but if you use debugs, you're able to get like a huge assortment of rocks that you normally would not have. And I feel like that just makes the build look really nice. Now I kind of add some rocks here, but eventually I kind of like change it because that just looks god awful with the coloration and how it doesn't really have much scale in a terrarium with like depth of heights. Generally, when I'm kind of like doing landscaping, I kind of don't like doing a single part of the house. I kind of add like different layers. So like the first layer would be the trees, and then it would be rocks, and then it would be the plants, and I kind of just add it all around the house before I move on to the next set of plants that I want to use. And I feel like that kind of makes it come together a lot more better, because sometimes otherwise you will forget that you used it in one place but not the other, so then it kind of becomes like just not very coherent. So it's like being symmetrical, but you want to make sure that there's like asymmetry in places that just makes sense. And with this terrarium, you can basically customize it any way you wish. Just add like any two set of rocks that you really like and add a few plants, and it will just like look good no matter what. But of course you kind of want to add some grass to the bottom so you don't really see that gray table on the foundation of it. I really wish that they kind of had like a trash can and recycling. Oh, and there's like that garage door that I was mentioning with where you can like paint on it, but you can't really change the color, so it kind of looks gaudy in that regard. And generally with a lot of my builds, I feel like it kind of becomes too foresty and not very well kept. And I feel like maybe in future builds it could be more like a proper landscaping that doesn't seem like you just came out of the forest and just stumble upon this random house. In here you're like downsizing the critters, and you hide them within the rocks and the foliage so that it's not really seen. And then when you're in live mode, you'll only see the bugs. For the ones I use, I decided on the monarch butterflies because I just think that they look really cute. Although I think like the mantis would be like really cool. And I think it's like really nice with it's like the water festival that you would go to in Washington DC, or no, it's not Washington DC, but it's like the harbor. I believe it's technically in Maryland, and I think it's just really cool just having it just float around there. Although I do believe I forgot about night pictures. I think I will be adding like lanterns and like outdoor lights everywhere, which would not be shown in the speed build, but you'll probably see it in the screenshots at the end of the video. And here, I just found out that you can use like curved walls for like the stone fencing, but it's more like a debug item, so there's only like a small size and a big size, and I kind of didn't feel like moving all my trees just so that it would work, but it's definitely something that I'll keep in mind in the future. I really like it because it's from the Get Together DLC, and I really love like the two-door like housing style, like architecture style, and I really like the stone fencing. I just think it just looks really neat. And now I'm just going through basically every single debug item just to see what looks nice, and I'm just like implementing them whether they're outdoors or indoors or such. And for my Sims playthrough, I generally like having one of the occults, generally like the vampire. So I like having like that vampire, I forgot what you call it, it's like some kind of vampire fruit tree. Just so you don't have to suck the blood from any other Sims. And now I'm trying to figure out, so basically I have this little section cut off so that it could be used more for the backyard, although not as big as most people would probably want. I feel like it's kind of used well enough where you have your little gazebo, you have a little sitting area, and later on you'll see like adding some recreational things like swings and such. And I feel like for this outdoor deck area, I feel like again it's kind of like a missed opportunity to do a sunroom, because I feel like a sunroom always makes a build just look really nice, because you could have like half that like what was it, like that floor block with deck as your sunroom, and then when you're kind of like walking out from the main living room, that could be like an open deck leading into your patio. In here, I really like having a few Easter eggs around my builds, where you kind of have like a naked gnome just like hiding in the bathroom and having ghosts and such. And a really neat thing is that I do replace the bamboo and some of the tall pine trees with debug items, because with the normal items that you get, they're all always like one size, but with debug you're able to find the same tree in different sizes, and I feel like it kind of makes it look a lot more like have more depth in your build. And there's kind of like an example that you see with the roof kind of like clipping through. Essentially, if you're in live mode, you'll always see that tiny bit of the roof. But if you were to do the mistake that I mentioned prior, where you have a roof that extends from the first floor all the way through the second floor, you'll basically see that roof the entire time and you cannot get rid of it. So then you kind of have to mess around and just have like two separate roofs, like one on the first floor that's a single angle and another that's like your angled gable, or however you wish to do your roofing to make it work. And one thing is that when you're adding clutter into a room, it's kind of best to move the furniture away so that you're able to put the decorations more closer together. Because essentially, if the furniture is still there, what the Sims would do is try to automatically clip the item so that it would kind of fit one of the grids a little bit better. And I really love this like bath rug. It has like a shoddy cut, and it just looks really nice and furry. And I wish there was more carpet like that, because I feel like it looks a lot more natural than most. But I feel like sometimes I would overuse it a lot of times. But nothing wrong with it, as long as like you have different colors and you kind of like have it utilized in different ways. So like in the bedrooms, they're kind of like this big one, and in the bathrooms, they're kind of like a small little bath rug. But yeah. And I believe this build is like a 7x speed, and it basically is like a whole hour to watch. And for the build, it essentially took like 7 hours. And I feel like it's kind of neat recording my builds, because before I don't really have like a way to look back on my builds. And I feel like this is a neat way to like record everything and kind of like show it to you guys, like my building process, and show off to my friends on how these things are built. Because generally my friends would want to watch, but I feel like the frame rate always kills it a little bit. Trying to like record or stream, I should say, while building, because The Sims is a very intensive game. Now here I'm kind of like building out the rooms so that it would fit like a 2-bedroom, a gym, and a little living area. And I want to make sure that there's like a kitchen, but although it's not the biggest kitchen, it does work well enough. There's basically a kitchen on each floor. I remember seeing this one YouTube video of a real life house build, and they had like 9 refrigerators in a single house, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I wanted this place to be also like a game room, so I wanted to make sure that you can kind of fit your TV and kind of fit like a pool table or like a little table where you could play Jenga. And I think it's quite cute. Unfortunately, a lot of times I would kind of replicate the bathroom and the living room for each floor to kind of be somewhat similar, because I feel like The Sims generally doesn't have items where they kind of like coordinate well, unless they're like a completely different theme, or if you have like more packs, it'll kind of like work out a little bit better. And I really love this pack where you can have like modular sofas with chase and flat ottomans. And I feel like they could just be used in so many different ways, because I had like an ottoman placed between the bookshelves, and you can have one like right behind the sofa. And I think that just looks really nice. And it's also very functional as well. For each of these rooms, for most rooms I build, I really don't want there to just be like 2 end tables and a bed just like smack down in the middle, because I feel like that's kind of like lazy work. Although in most like fancy households, you generally have it that way just because it looks more neat. and more like put together, I would say. But I kind of want to make sure that each person has like their own little space where they can do their own thing without having to leave their room unless they're kind of like hanging out or like needing to eat or such. But I always really love watching videos where people are making use of really tiny spaces to make their rooms, like, or basically like tiny builds. I always think they're really cool, just seeing how they can make it functional. But of course, in like bigger houses, I feel like it's rather rough trying to build a house that has like such huge square footage, because you just always have a lot of void and a lot of like negative space. Although with accent walls and kind of like, I feel like they kind of bring like a focal point and kind of make it seem a lot more how would you say, like more cluttered or more close together, and I feel like it just works out a lot better that way. It's kind of like if you use black walls, it kind of makes the space feel a lot more smaller than it should, but I feel like black walls could be good in like more bigger houses. But yeah, and now we're gonna be going through the screenshots. Thanks for watching. If you loved the video, please subscribe and like the video. See you all next time. Bye!